Hello. It's been a while. um, I've been busy and etc. and nobody cares. But I'm working on my next MiniCTM maps thing series. Not quite sure what to call it. So I have my old maps and I've updated them. All but one. The third one I haven't updated yet because I wanted to jump into the next phase. I do want to go back and update it in the same style that I updated the previous two. And check them out. They're on the marketplace. They're really cool. But I also want to make my maps that really leverage features that you can only get in Bedrock Edition. Let's see, here I'm on Java Edition. This is the starting point of all my maps. I don't know a better workflow. This is just how I do it. But because I finally started putting something in Minecraft, I just wanted to at least document it. And the house is quiet. People either asleep or gone, have a moment. So, hey, why not? We are recording my screen. You can see my start and everything else. That's because I need to bring in a bunch of windows. So, here we are in Excel. I love Excel. Excel is not necessarily the program probably originally designed for laying out information. It's a spreadsheet program, but it lets me put things in location. So it just lets me lay it out the way I want without having to fight all the formatting of a program like Word. So this is my outline. Where I started actually is before this, even, obviously. You have to look and see and think, this is information that's organized and tabbed, and it's got a picture. So this is clearly not where I started. It takes a while just to get to this point. I found a mapping program that seems pretty all right. I wasn't planning on showing it, but why not? World Grapher. Hexographer 2. It's free. Trial mode. It's just a hex-based editor. It's nothing... Well, you know, I don't know. I don't know what it isn't. I've only used it as an amateur. But I just picked kind of random symbols and placed them, and they don't really mean anything. They mean something to me, but they don't really mean... I'm not using them for whatever they're intended for. I'm just using them. So I started with this. And you can see the name if you want to look it up, check it out. And I just did that to kind of sketch out some general shapes and figures. Where I'm starting to build in Minecraft is actually here. Woodcutter's Watch. This is sort of where you start. This is where you actually start, but it's more of a it was just a dream type of thing. That probably sounds very exciting. Hopefully it will be. This area is this area. Just there's been a lot more development. A lot of the trees have been cut down. Whereas before it was more richly forested. So I'm starting with this area because I'm going to then rip some of this out and basically make that area and figure out how I want to handle the edges. If you're in a place that's not really a place, I'd love to make it look mystical or eerie or fantastical. But you could do that wrong. So I'll see. My mapping skills, as far as design and building and etc., I'm pushing limits. I'm trying to learn. So we start with here. and there's lots of information, and that was more for me to kind of map out ideas, and that's generated some ideas. And a lot of this text originally came from ChatGTP, and that's just me using that as a tool to kind of spark more ideas. Hey, here's the general baseline of what I have. ChatGTP will give you very basic stuff unless you start out with a good foundation of information. So really, you still need to do a decent amount of work if you want good results. And I'm using the free version of that, which means I don't get access to the model that's a little smarter. I don't know exactly how the results would be different, but since I want to take everything I get and then also heavily edit it as well, it sort of doesn't matter. Because by the time I'm done, it's going to be all mine. I'm thinking about how I want to build this out. Let me see if I can describe these mountains. What I'm actually imagining is cliffs that go nearly straight down. And so I pictured, oh, ravines do that. So I'll load up Minecraft and look at some ravines. And then I'll build out, there's a ravine that is just a square, and it kind of just goes straight across. And then there's the ravine that's for the corner. And then there's the ravine that's for the anti-corner. I don't know if that's a real term. Just roll with it. And so I could then just place them like Lego blocks into place. And you, the player, are on the ground level looking up. It's just a flat, jagged, straight up with some sort of variation so it's not boring. And it would kind of encase this area. It would do the same here, of course, because that's the same. Here's a field that's open, so this would be open to sky. So these would be kind of the sheer cliffs as well. Here we have butterfly swamp, shaped like a butterfly, and also that means I need to come up with a way to make a custom butterfly mob that just flies around. This one I actually want in an underground lush cave. That's going to be fun to figure out. But these pieces that I kind of need to create, I'm going to need them for a lot of areas. So I need to figure that out. So I'm thinking about that, and I'm jumping into the game. I made an amplified world, just a random world to float around in and look for ravines, and they don't quite do what I want, so I'm going to have to reapproach that. But I wanted to lay out the base area. This is in Hex, and I used Hex because that's what the mapping program I found did, and it looks very visually appealing. But I started trying to lay this out, and I realized I couldn't keep track of, okay, where does this one go? Is this to the left? To the right? Is it up above it? That explanation is terrible, but I couldn't figure it out. So I made this, which is I just cut off the edges and slid things up and down. It doesn't look as visually appealing, but things in the map are not going to actually be, there's not going to be a cube of mountain or cliff. It'll be jagged. Same for the trees. It's not just going to be a cube of trees. It'll be thicker towards the back and thinner towards the edges. How I'm going to do that, I don't know. But that's the plan. In the world, what I've done, I did I turned on chunk borders, and I treated these like cubes. And I placed symbology. It's all just symbology. So part of this is to figure out if I like the spacing of everything or if I feel like it's too much. So here we have a well, and here are some homes that were built around it, and here's a good example of, well, actually this would look a little better over here. There's about 2 squares of space here. Maybe the well would go down one more, but then I'm also keeping in mind the place that you kind of start out before this is going to be much smaller. And that's sort of to hint at how this place grew out and how it was full of trees, and they've been, a lot of them have been lumbered out, not all of them. This represents some sort of ruins. This represents light trees, heavy trees, cliff wall. This will be cave turned into a mines and then closed down, and that'll be where you go to get to the next set of areas. This is not lava, this is just naturally generated. I didn't take care of it yet. Over here will be a lumber mill. Inside this will be a very small cave system. It's going to reflect the cave system of the very first area, except here it'll be used to store vegetables or something. I want to think about the people who live here, what they would actually do, what they would actually build. There's a giant cleared area here, so as I was laying this out, I was thinking about maybe there's another lumber-like area that is here, but mostly disassembled. These trees are there's a lot of trees not here, so maybe they built one over there and then used the parts from here to here, and they're letting this area regrow, something like that. This is meant to represent an observatory. I'm not sure why there's an observatory, so I'll have to think about that and make it interesting and make sure I tie it in. I'm not going to have things just because. I'm going to make sure it makes some kind of story sense, even if it's not written in a 20-page essay that you have to read. But that way, when you, as the player, explore the world and you notice these hints, you can kind of spin the tale in your mind, and there will be some sort of logical conclusions that you can guess at. Here's a good example of why this would not be a solid cube of heavy trees and here, because then how would you go here? So clearly we can use our brain and just, we don't have to follow these outline guidelines to the letter. They are simply a guide. I did use, I freeze because I forget the name of something. World Edit to make a brush and clear out all the grass, just so as I'm showing this off, documenting it, we can see it a little more clearly. World Edit is a fantastic tool that I don't think I could, there's so much I could not do except for the fact that I have this tool. So we can set a mask, which means only impact those blocks. We can set a material, commonly air, set a size so it's not so terrible and doesn't take so long. Then we can just clear out the lava. I could have also just changed it to some other block or anything. So as I continue to work on this, my current thoughts are, it's far too flat. This is a flat world, and that's because I wanted complete control over what is in the ground. Honestly, I think it's just a layer of grass and 3 layers of dirt, the rest stone, but we are starting at 9-0. 9-0, remember in this edition, is not the bottom. It goes like -60 or -100 or negative something. I don't remember. But I want to make sure to use height elevation as another point of interest. So for this area, I'll jump into Amulet, which is another editor. I'll just select this entire 1 tile layer, lift it up about 16, 32 blocks, doesn't matter, just get it off the ground so I don't lose my my layout. That's also a place I could go to select these and then just move them down. I could also just handbrake them and then rebuild them. But that, why? I prefer to do things by hand, like block by block, but I have to force myself, even though it takes a little bit longer, to remember to use the more advanced tools. Like, how do I do that again? How do I? Oh, yeah. It's worth the extra effort that you have to put in to jump back and forth between programs to then do the task much more efficiently. And this is just one area, and this is, by comparison of some of the ideas I have, a simple area. So lift these up so I don't lose them. Generate a natural world that will automatically have height elevation. Maybe make it a single biome world. Just grab the top 3 blocks or something. Well, however many blocks I need to get all the different height variation. Some gentle rolling hills. And then just paste it on top. But kind of outside of these edged boundaries. And then that's my floor. For the cliffs, I'm thinking, do I build those first? Or do I build the trees? See, I want the trees in the area where there's trees to be really thick and right butt up against the cliff. But they clearly can't intersect. And when you're copy pasting, you're selecting cube-shaped areas. So you got to think about the order of operations, and I still need to figure that out. But this is very early stage. I don't know if this process is a good process. This is not the process I used with my other maps, because I'm updating those, so it's completely different flow. You have something that you already have, and you're just modifying it. Sometimes you're wiping out an area and rebuilding it, but for the most part, you have the foundation laid. I'll share with you, as a closer, one idea I possibly have as the cliff, which I've done before to build mountains, is I can set this brush to do a gravity block, like sand or gravel, and I can just place blobs of the block and let it build up. And I think if I go nearly straight up, I could get a fairly sharp drop that still looks semi-natural. If I want to add some variation, I can use a mix of blocks. You don't have to just paint one block. You can do 10% this, 80% that, 10% something else, whatever. You can even do 100% this and 100% that. It'll work it out and figure out the math and do 50-50. But I could speckle another block in, and then before you do anything with it, you paint it again. Only you basically are painting those blocks to become other blocks that aren't gravity impacted. And then flip it or spin it or something. But my goal would be to get pieces that I can just slot into place that aren't so similar that you can see the pattern, but good enough that I don't have to make 20 different variations. great to make a video. I hope you find this interesting. I'll continue to document my process as I find things that I think might be interesting to share. I don't think I've really fully documented the creation of a map from start to finish. This is a brand new thing. So, good luck to me. Have a great day.